Hello, I'm here to be annoying again and talk shit. But this time it is about the movie that has just released, Sinners. I watched this movie Easter Sunday, and I have to say that is a masterpiece. I haven't seen a movie that good in a very, very long time, and I'm pretty sure you've heard people say this sentence like multiple times before in the past, or just in passing about Sinners. But it really is that good of a movie. I will say Ryan Coogler didn't disappoint. I don't think he ever really does with the movies he directs or helps produce. Black Panther, Fruitvale Station. So just different things like that. But I will say, Sinners, child. Let me just talk about it. Also, just really quickly, this is my non-spoiler review of it. It's just a 10 out of 10 like good no notes movie. Like a lot of people, I heard a lot of people debating on whether if it's a musical or not. I wouldn't necessarily call it a musical. It is a musical movie, but it's not a musical itself. It does center a lot around music in general, but I wouldn't say it's like a musical where every 10 seconds someone is singing to fit in with the dialogue. I will say, so far as the debate for a horror movie, what they would classify it as, I would say it's a horror movie. Because the general sense is, if you've seen the trailer, is that the movie is about vampires. And I will say the little baby, fake goth girl in me was screaming because I have been wondering who in the hell is going to make a black vampire movie that doesn't involve, um, you know, anything with death and despair. Now, mind you, like I said, non spoiler review. Um, there is some themes of very heavy topics going on. I mean, considering the time period and the context of what's going on in the movie. But I will say overall, it is a really good representation of, that time period. I will say a lot of good cultural representation. And so far as vampires, the lore of it is perfect because it picks and chooses little lore bits and pieces about vampires in general. But the ones that they pick and choose for this story in specific fits it all together. So I love that. But yeah, that's the non spoiler review. After this, you might want to leave if you've never seen the movie or haven't seen it yet. And then maybe come back or don't. Doesn't matter. Love you anyway. What everybody's been talking about is Annie versus Mary. I fucking hate this debate. Mary and Annie. Starting off with Mary's character, because I don't have much to say. Haley Steinfeld, by the way, all the actors and actresses in this movie did a phenomenal job. I'm not talking about them as people, I'm talking about their characters, and what people, the audience had to say about their characters. So Mary starting off as being the white passing black woman in the movie. Now, granted, we all know that Haley Steinfeld is inherently and physically white. And apparently, through the grapevine, we heard that she's like 12% black or something, and her character in the movie is like 15%, whatever. She has a black grandfather or half black grandfather. I don't know. Anyways, she, her character is very complex in the way, like, there was people like her who existed back in the day, because of the 1/8 rule or 1/18th rule or something like that. It's 1/8 or 1/18th. I'll put that right here once I do the research for it. And they were white adjacent or white passing, considering. And someone made a great point. Oh my god. I was just watching a TikTok video right before I started recording, and her name is Bad Gal Sav. I'm gonna put her page right here, and she made a video about Mary and Annie and how most people who are non-black or even black people in general, the audience members, were making edits and videos. Because Michael B. Jordan is the main, love interest of both of these characters because he plays a twin in the movie. They were doing edits, cutting out Wumi's character, Annie, and like basically saying that Haley Steinfeld, Mary, and Stack, which is the other Michael B. Jordan twin, were a better duo. So I just noticed that people were really like joining them together. And then someone in the comments said this, and they said that Journey Smollett would have killed this role, which, if y'all know who Journey Smollett is and y'all know what she looks like, this girl would have dominated this role, because if anybody has watched Lovecraft Country, she would have put her foot in it. Like, when I say that she would have been the perfect person, because back then she was considered the girl that would be the white passing woman. Haley Steinfeld would have just been white because nobody would have known. They were somehow, they might have shared some features with black people, but if their skin was lighter than a paper bag, honey, they was good. Like, that's just how it was back then. And if we're talking about like late 1920s, early 1930s, like Jim Crow era Mississippi, child, like deep South. You have to consider, yeah, she looks black to us now because we understand the genetics and the phonetics of people and what they look like. But back then, it was like, oh no, nah, she one of us because look at her, she looked like this. Like what the fuck, like that's not, she ain't one of them. So, but that's besides the point. Ryan Coogler, like I said, everybody did an amazing job, so they casted everyone perfectly. It didn't matter, but that would have to save face and conversation for things were way less important. That would have worked way better. But moving on. Mary, I will say, because she looked more softer, right? Let's just call it what it is. Mary looked a lot softer than Annie because Mary was a white adjacent woman, or she was a white passing woman. So she did not have to worry about the probably the woes of even though the Great Depression happened just right, before 1932. Um she didn't have to worry about that because she was basically put up somewhere very safe from what we heard from Stack. So like we just assumed that she didn't have the same stripes as Annie did. And we just kind of like are assuming, okay, if she didn't see Stack, she probably would have got her ass on that train and still could be in a white woman. Like that's just what it was. While as Annie, I will say I had to ask my mom this question because I went to go see it with my mom, you know, and she even told me that she thought Annie was Smoke, which is the other Michael B. Jordan twin. She thought that Annie was Smoke's mother. And a lot of people have been saying this. I've noticed a lot of black people have been saying this as well. And it's like, I get it because she did have a very matronly look to her. She was a darker skinned woman, heavy setter woman, very curvy. So I guess the understanding was because of her stature and how they had her looking was why people thought that that was his mother. But for me, I didn't think she was related to him. I just thought she was a woman that he knew. I didn't assume that that was his mother. But from when I was talking to my mom to get better understanding, they made her look older, like the makeup. Like they really like roughened Annie's character up. Now, granted, what happens in the movie, like I said, spoilers, the baby. So they lost their child. I'm assuming it was a miscarriage. And she's still in deep South Mississippi. It looks like she's still living on a plantation damn near. Because a lot of those plantations were turned into regular homes for people after slavery ended because they had nowhere else to go. And a lot of them had turned to sharecropping and just working on the fields, which adds context to that because it goes on to Cornbread's character where they come up to him and his wife and offer him to be security at the juke joint that night. And you could see them clearly picking cotton like they're still sharecropping even years after slavery ended. It wasn't uncommon that black people were still living in some sense of like poverty and roughness. Like, you don't just recover like that from something like that. You don't recover that quickly because it's I mean, it goes without saying, my people know. You just kind of have this understanding that things are automatically rougher. So I want to believe that the because everybody assumed Annie was his mother was because of how rough she looked, how hard she looked as a character, by the way. We're not talking about her as a person. I think it's because of, like I said, the Great Depression happened, but I don't think it really affected black people as much as it did white people in that sense. But also, we're talking Jim Crow era, post slavery, and she's still in the deep set souths of Mississippi. I feel like Mississippi was always decades behind everybody else. So there's no way that you're going to tell me that she's going to look as soft and as put up as Mary. Now, you can make the argument with Sammy's love interest. I forgot her name and I'm so sorry. I'm gonna put it right here. But with Sammy's love interest, who was also another complex, lovely character, she was a married woman. Rightfully so. Yes, she had a more softer look to her as well. But like I said, this is context of like, okay, Annie was first of all left in Mississippi by herself while Smoke went off to Chicago and was in the military. I hate the way people have been trying to kind of put them against each other with Mary versus like Annie, even though they both had the same they both had different love interests, and both of their love interests acted very differently from the other. And you're probably thinking, oh, they're both Michael B. Jordan. I get that. But his character Smoke was completely different from his character Stack. And when you watch the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I feel like I rambled a lot, but moral of the story is that both those characters look the way they do for context reasons. Another thing I wanted to bring up was Remick. Oh, baby. Remic's character. Oh my god, I'm gonna put the actor's name right here. Like I said, I'll be recording these videos right after I get off of work, so my brain is fried. I remember seeing him, and if anybody knows what I'm talking about, this UK show that was like a really fucked up Degrassi called Skin. Irish people and African Americans at that time had a lot in common because the British was invading and colonizing both of their cultures. They were basically trying to erase everything that they knew, which, like I said, with American slavery, you can see that within history books, within shit media, within physical media and things like that, such as like if you read certain books. There is this one book. Hold on one second. I really want to get this book. So there is two books actually. There's this one book that when I was going to school at FIT, my African American literature class, The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. And then there was another book that was written by a slave, a living slave back in 2008, where he wrote an autobiography about his life. And it was written in the way that he told it. So it's like, it is physical evidence of things like this happening. And it's just so interesting because in the story, Remick, as a vampire, he was very dead set on not trying to become like his colonizer, right? Like he was really like, okay, I can make your lives better and free you from this personal enslavement that you deal with post slavery, being in Jim Crow. And I can turn you into a vampire. I can introduce you to vampirism where you will live forever and you will be able to wreak havoc on those who wreaked havoc on you. A lot of people saw similarities in Remick of his character being compared to the devil, because of the way he was introduced in the movie. He kind of fell like a fallen angel. Obviously, if you know and watching the movie that he's able to fly because that's one of his vampire rules. Like I said, they picked and choose the vampire lore, which I love because they did it to fit within the universe. He fell in from the sky and he basically tricked this white family who was also part of the Ku Klux Klan into letting him into their home because they saw a white man and was in pain, and he used and that was the thing. It's like his character was a contradiction because he would use oppression as a way to make the white people trust him, so he had an upper hand on them. Kind of like similar, if you're familiar with Christianity and the Bible, if you are if you are practicing or part of the religion, then you know that the devil is just a master of destruction. Like he just wants anything and everything to go bad, even if it doesn't go his way. He just wants something bad to happen. Period. That's just the whole crux of the devil, like the basic description of it. And he kind of used oppression to kind of be like, oh, the Indians, the Native Americans, they're after me. Native Americans, not Indians, but that's what he called them. So he said they're after me. They're after me. So, which they were because they were trying to kill his ass because he was a fucking vampire. And then one of my favorite scenes in the fucking movie happened where after they let him in, and the white lady, she's all defensive. She sees the Native Americans coming up on the lawn, and basically she opens the door like, "Who are you?" Doing the whole racist bitch shit. And they kind of were like, "Ma'am, did you let a burning man in your home, possibly Caucasian?" Like, and then they saw the Ku Klux Klan hood and they're like, ah, I see. Anyways, did you see that white man running there? And they're just like, we don't see nothing. And then they're like, oh, word, the sun about to go down. We gotta go. They're like, all right, round them up. You have a blessed one. And left. We never saw them again. We never saw them again. And honestly, period. Period. I wish my people in that movie was a little bit like them. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like because Native Americans had a more in touch with their spiritual side, by this point slavery had been going on for a couple hundred years. I feel like a lot of black people have been steered away from that. At this point, a lot of people were more into Christianity, which if you're watching the movie and you see Sammy's father, he's a pastor. And down south, Christianity is very, very wide, vast, and very prevalent around that time because they were turning to God and just trying to turn to some type of salvage and some type of savior after dealing with so much heartache and heartbreak of the traumas of slavery. And they were told that doing anything else besides that to turn for solace was evil. And they turned their nose up a lot at spirituality and things of dealing with, your ancestors and talking to spirits and channeling spirits, through music. When in all actuality, like, with Christianity, that's exactly what black people do. Because I do notice that Christianity amongst different cultures are different. Like with black people, Christianity, like the music is just like, so it fills the room. Like you feel a spiritual connection to it of some sort. if you listen to gospel or have listened to gospel or any other popular gospel song, like there has been gospel songs from black people that have charted, because they are just so like you feel it, you something you feel it. And that was the main crux of the movie as well. Like you just it's like a musical connection that certain people with very specific cultures and very specific things that are close to them, like it feels like it's something channeling, you know but anyways, I'm going on a rant once again. But yeah, Remy's character will say very enjoyable because having an Irish vampire, new by the way. There probably is a lot of examples, but that was my first time being introduced to that shit because that was very, very interesting. There is a song that they sing. So you remember how I said Remick was using oppression as kind of a contradiction, but then when he was faced with black people to try and get into the juke joint that was being opened at that night, they were suspicious because I mean obviously they weren't just letting him in. So I will say the fight was long and hard and it was very arduous. They weren't trusting at first. They weren't as trusting as the white people were, so it took them a lot longer to get in on them. And even when they finally did get in on them, it wasn't even their fault. The crazy part about it. But when they first came to the door at the juke joint and they were singing a song called Pick Poor Robin Clean, it was actually I did some research and I listened to some of the songs in the soundtrack because they were singing "Pick Poor Robin Clean," and it was so funny because everybody in the theater was kind of giggling a little bit because it was just him and the two like clan members, and they were just kind of with their little banjo like kind of doing the shit. And Stack was kind of feeling it. He was like, "Okay, I see y'all," but everybody else is like, "No, this is fucking weird." Now, granted, me and my mom were watching the movie, and I was like, "Yeah, this is weird," and my mom was like, "I would have shot the fuck out of him," and I'm like, "You see," and there's like the duality, like not every black person's gonna be down for that shit, so it's like they had all of the reactions in the room. It's like, "Oh, I see you," and then there's the other people like, "This is fucking weird." Like even Mary was like, "Bitch, this is weird." That actually is from this artist named Geeshie Wiley, and she is a black Southern blues singer from back in I want to say the 20s or 30s, and that's her song. That's her song that she sung. And it is on the soundtrack. If you go and listen to it, they have remix version where he's singing it with like I said, the two clan members, and then there's the version that they have with the original, where it's an actual, I think, raw audio of her singing that song. So it's just interesting because he deliberately chose a song that he knew that they were going to trust him with because they're like, oh, they know this one, let me play that shit, and to let me in. And I think that's so, like I said, the duality of it all. And then they finally ask him like, hey, are y'all clan? And then he's like, sir, me? No, we're all equal. Like wait. It's just so good. Like y'all, like describing it is not gonna do you just like y'all have to go see this movie. Like it's so good. And it's just like we don't let white people in here. And he's like, what's Miss Girl in the back doing? Toy that Mary. Like, I mean, he was just doing everything he could just to be mischievous as fuck. Which is why I think because towards the end of the movie he did indulge him in that fact that they were gonna die anyway because the clan was going to come there in the morning by the time the juke joint closed, which most juke joints at the time, they were basically running all throughout the night, all the way up until the early hours of the morning. The clan's plan, because he bought the building from a unknown, he didn't know that this man was a clan member. They cracked a joke about it earlier in the movie, but the white dude was being all weird like, I'm not no clan, whatever the fuck. But he Remick indulged him and said, hey, like after he got majority of the people outside and started turning them and shit, he's like, you don't know, they was gonna come here and kill y'all asses in the morning anyway, so I'm doing y'all a favor. So I'm telling you, if I get you to turn into a vampire, you can handle that real quick. You know what I'm saying? And it's just interesting because it's like like I said, he's using oppression against them so they can be on his side. It's like, the oppressee becomes the oppressor, and he just kind of like he's saying like, "Oh, my people, we understand. I'm Irish. Like, I get it." But it's like also in the midst of you trying to understand so much, you ended up becoming the fucking villain too. So I mean, in the end, obviously, we know the story of that, where Smoke is the last twin left. Stack got turned, but Smoke basically bodies the fucking Ku Klux Klan. Love that, love that, love that, love that. Favorite scene. But yeah, that's my review of Sinners. I mean, honestly, I'm not gonna go through and describe the whole movie to y'all. Like, y'all should go watch it. I mean, if you've seen the movie and you're just hearing me chat about it, it's just like talking to your homegirl. Like, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm
It doesn't matter if you're black or white. Hell, you can even be Chinese.